In the quiet town of Manchester, Tennessee, life often felt untouched by the chaos of the outside world. It was a place where neighbors left their doors unlocked, where families gathered on front porches in the evenings, and where the only sound that cut through the night was the low rumble of a passing freight train. But hidden beneath that calm was a story that no one could have imagined. A story that began, not with a headline-grabbing raid or a dramatic police chase, but with something almost ordinary, a car accident. On a damp evening, two men staggered from the twisted metal of a wrecked vehicle. To anyone driving by, it looked like another unfortunate collision on a rural road. But when officers arrived and peered inside the car, what they found told a different story. Bundles of cash, traces of narcotics, and whispers of something much larger than anyone in Tennessee had ever expected. That single accident would unravel into one of the most significant cartel investigations in U.S. history, one that would stretch from the rolling hills of Tennessee to the violent mountains of Mexico, ultimately pointing to a man feared and revered in equal measure, Juan José Farías Álvarez, known as El Abuelo, the grandfather. What began as routine police work quickly escalated into something far more dangerous. Federal investigators were called in. Wiretaps were authorized. And soon, a web of conversations crackled through hidden devices. Coded words, strange references, a language designed to keep outsiders in the dark. But the agents listening knew exactly what they were hearing. The calls spoke of shipments, of product moving through hidden routes, of money being exchanged in staggering amounts. Surveillance teams began following trucks as they crossed state lines, seemingly ordinary tractor-trailers carrying what looked like everyday cargo. But hidden deep inside were drugs worth millions, destined for American streets. And then came the violence. In one small Tennessee town, police officers found themselves in a sudden firefight with cartel-linked traffickers. Gunshots echoed through quiet streets that had never known this kind of danger. For residents, it was unthinkable. The violence of international cartels had reached their doorstep. As the investigation unfolded, one name kept rising to the top, El Abuelo. To the people of Michoacán, Mexico, he was a complicated figure. Some saw him as a protector, a man who brought money into poor communities, who gave jobs when no one else could. But to others, he was the embodiment of fear, a man whose power came from blood, intimidation, and control. For U.S. law enforcement, there was no ambiguity. He was the architect of an empire, the man who turned narcotics into an international machine of destruction. Always on the move, shielded by heavily armed enforcers, El Abuelo remained just out of reach, a ghost moving between safe houses, always one step ahead of justice. Court documents later revealed the scale of his operation. The United Cartels, rivals of the infamous Jalisco New Generation Cartel, were moving staggering quantities of meth, cocaine, and heroin. Their reach stretched not only across Mexico but deep into American towns that had never imagined being part of a cartel war. For Tennessee families, the investigation was a wake-up call. This wasn't just about drugs in big cities or violence at the border. This was about their community, their children, their future. The drugs flooding in weren't abstract numbers. They were addictions that tore families apart, overdoses that claimed young lives, and violence that shattered a sense of safety small towns once took for granted. Parents watched as their communities changed. Law enforcement officers who once spent their careers on small-scale crimes suddenly found themselves face-to-face with cartel gunmen. And for many, the realization was chilling. The cartel wars weren't far away anymore. They were here. The United States responded with force. Indictments were unsealed against cartel leaders and high-ranking enforcers. Raids disrupted supply lines. Millions of dollars worth of narcotics were seized. But El Abuelo remained untouchable. 4 years, he slipped through the cracks, protected by loyalty, fear, and a network of violence that made approaching him nearly impossible. And so, the US government raised the stakes. A $10 million bounty was placed on his head, one of the largest rewards ever offered for a cartel leader. Millions more were pledged for his lieutenants. It was a message to the world. The grandfather's empire would not stand unchallenged. And yet, the question remains, how do you capture a man who thrives in the shadows? How do you bring justice to someone who rules with both fear and loyalty? Someone whose empire spans countries and continents? The story that began with a wrecked car in Tennessee is still unfolding. Federal agents continue their pursuit. Communities remain on edge. And families continue to pay the price of a war they never asked to be part of. The truth is, the fight against organized crime is not distant. It is not someone else's problem. It is here, and it touches lives in ways we often don't see until it's too late. Subscribe to our channel, where we uncover the hidden stories behind organized crime, reveal how global cartels impact local American communities, and explore the ongoing pursuit of justice. Stay informed, stay safe. Any suspicious act or movement, report to your local authority.